Good morning and thank you for joining us. My name is Tina Tebow and I will be your moderator for this morning's media briefing. Joining us today, the Honourable Chuck Porter, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing and Minister responsible for the Nova Scotia Emergency Management Office. Paul Mason, Executive Director of the Emergency Management Office, who is joining us virtually. Mark Sidebottom, Chief Operating Officer for Nova Scotia Power. And Bob Robichaud, Warning Preparedness Meteorologist, the Canadian Hurricane Centre, also joining us virtually. Go ahead, Minister.
Thank you, Tina. Good morning, everyone. The way we have successfully weathered storms in the past is by working together and being prepared. We need to do so again today. Now is not the time to become overconfident. Provincially, Emergency Management Office is closely monitoring the storm and working directly with dozens of our partners. The Provincial Coordination Centre opened Sunday at noon and remains fully operational. Our emergency workers are ready to respond, and our critical infrastructure partners are set to resolve services when it is safe to do so. Ultimately, everyone must do their part to keep our loved ones safe, and first responders safe as well. Once the winds and the rain pick up, make sure that you have your supplies handy: radios, batteries, flashlights, etc. Make sure your phone is fully charged. Check your local media regularly for the updates. Check in on your family and on your neighbors. Let them know where you are. And stay off the roads unless it's absolutely necessary that you need to be out there. Also, please remember, we're still in a pandemic, and we all need to continue to follow public health direction. Finally, I want to emphasize that the storm surge could be the most dangerous part of this storm. This is not the time to watch the waves crashing. Stay away from the shorelines and the rocks along the coast. Tina, thank you, and I believe we're going to go to Bob for an update.
Yeah, Bob Robichaud, go ahead with your weather update, please.
All right, thank you. Yes, I'll just give a brief update on where the storm is now and where it's going. Je vais préciser que je vais donner un petit résumé en anglais sur la tempête, mais je serai disponible pour des questions en français par la suite. So as of right now, the storm is still about just over 500 kilometers to the south of Halifax. It is moving in this direction at about 45 kilometers per hour. And what we expect is that the storm is going to make a slight turn towards the northeast into the overnight hours and reach the eastern shore of Nova Scotia during the morning hours of Wednesday. In terms of winds, the area of most concern for the winds is going to be to the right of the track, where we could see winds gusting into the 90, 100 kilometer per hour range, but that should be fairly close to the coastline. Other areas won't see winds quite that strong, but as the minister indicated earlier, one of the other concerns that we have is in terms of the storm surge. We're already seeing elevated water levels along the south shore as we speak. As we get into the later afternoon, we're going to see some of the larger waves arrive on the Atlantic coast. And as we head into high tide in the overnight hours from Halifax eastward is going to be the period of concern for potential coastal flooding. And I'd just like to reiterate that over the last number of years, we've lost a lot of people who have gone to the coastline to watch those waves, and that's what we need to avoid in this particular storm especially.
Thanks, Bob. So now we'll take questions from reporters. Just a reminder that we will take one question and one follow-up from reporters in the room, and then we'll go to reporters on the line. So before you ask your question, please indicate which of our presenters this morning your question is for. Preston Mulligan, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Bob Robichaud, you said the storm, the winds and the rain is going to hit the eastern shore Wednesday morning. Can you be more specific about the timing there?
Yeah, there's actually two areas that we're watching. One is actually reaching the coast and will sweep through most of the province today. Those winds should be in the 80 to 90 kilometer per hour range. And rainfall amounts, specifically across the entire province, we're probably looking at 10 to 30 millimeters just in this first band. It's when that storm approaches tomorrow that we're going to see some of those stronger winds. So anywhere to the right of that track, we're going to see winds increasing in the morning hours, and it's that small area to the east of the track from Guysborough County, potentially up into Cape Breton as well, that could see some of those stronger winds that could be approaching what we would consider damaging winds. Elsewhere, we don't expect the winds to be quite as strong as they will be on the right of the track. But that's going to be during the morning hours tomorrow.
What do you mean morning hours? After midnight or during the morning rush hour?
Switch that you turn on and off. It's going to be a gradual thing. It's probably going to be during the daylight hours of the morning tomorrow that up until the kind of lunchtime frame that we'll see the worst of those winds arriving at the coast. And that'll extend into the afternoon further east into Cape Breton.
Next, we'll go to Jesse Thomas from Global. Go ahead, Jesse.
Hi, thank you. Perhaps maybe this is a question for Minister Porter. I'm just wondering what the province has done, and maybe in particular contractors within HRM here to assure that we don't have another crane incident again. Do we know how many cranes are up in the area this year?
I specifically don't know. I know that Paul is on the line here with us, and I'll go to him in a moment. But we have been working for days on this. We're watching all the time, especially this time of year, with regards to these kinds of storms. So when it pops up, we're on it. So we're working with all of our partners. You see one of them, major partners, Scotia Power, with us today, and Mark's here. But we're also working with all of our other partners throughout our municipalities across the province as we make preparations and make folks aware. So the exact number of cranes, I'm just going to defer to Paul Mason. Paul, do you know the exact number? Have we got that?
We can certainly get that information, Minister. I don't have it here currently, but I know that Department of Labor have been working closely with partners municipally to ensure that the required steps with regard to crane safety with the incoming weather have been taken. It's certainly been a priority for the various partners we've been working with.
Just to add to that as well, Jesse, that the reports and things that we put out and advisories also include making sure in construction zones things are tied down, that they are safe where we are getting winds and weather. It's incumbent upon them to ensure that that stuff is being done, and we have every confidence that they are doing so.
Jesse, go ahead with your follow-up, please.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if there's anything else in terms of maybe alert systems or warnings in place that we learned from Dorian that are new that can help spread communication better this time around?
I guess I would say this. During Dorian, I think we were very early into that. We did a great deal of communication. It's been no different this time. We've continued to keep folks up to speed on what's going on, asking them to continue with their readiness plans to have all the things that they need for the 72-hour window during and post-storm. We'll continue to do that throughout the course of the next 24 hours and as long as the storm event is with us. So I think our team, not only at our head office at EMO, who are managing this, but all of our first responders and everyone else out there, our REMO coordinators and such in municipalities are doing a great job letting folks know and ready.
Next, we'll go to Michael McDonald from the Canadian Press. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you. Earlier, there was talk about storm surge potentially being the most dangerous part of this storm. I'm wondering, I guess this would be mostly it would be a question for Mr. Robichaud and Mr. Mason. Tell us a bit more about why storm surge is such a concern, and be specific in terms of where this is a concern.
Well, I can start with the actual phenomenon. Essentially, we're looking at a couple of different things that will contribute to the overall water level. One is the actual storm pushing water on shore. The other aspect of this that is certainly an important one, specifically with this storm, but all storms, are the wave heights that we're going to see approaching the coast as well. So whenever you get into a situation where the wave heights are high and the water levels are high, you tend to get areas that don't typically get wet that start to get wet, and not only get wet, but start to get pounded by that wave action. So you end up with issues with potential flooding where water will go where you don't want it to go, and also impact some coastal infrastructure as well. In terms of the timing, as I said, we're already starting to see some of those water levels rise at the coast along the south shore. High tide there is around midday today, so we're closely monitoring that aspect of it. High tide, kind of midway up along the Atlantic coast, is more like early afternoon. We're thinking that we might be okay from that perspective. That's particular tide. However, as we head into the evening hours, when we see those larger waves move in, is where we might start to get issues from, say, Halifax up the coast, up the eastern shore. And I think we're still going to have some significant waves arriving at the coast, even during the morning hours tomorrow. So we're going to have to keep an eye on the high tide, especially along the eastern shore in Cape Breton, tomorrow morning as well.
Paul, did you have something to add?
I just really echo Environment Canada's comments on that. We've been watching this system really since last week. As was noted, storm surge is certainly one of the risk factors that we're monitoring and working with our various partners at different levels, municipally as well. Areas of impact, as Bob noted, Eastern Shore and potentially parts of Cape Breton, though really the whole coastline is an area that we want to, and we certainly encourage our partners and the public generally to be cognizant of risk and to avoid those areas where you've got exposed land which could be impacted by large waves and storm surge.
Go ahead, Michael, with your follow-up question.
Yes, and just to follow up on that same topic, I don't think you mentioned the size of the waves. I think the numbers yesterday were between 6 and 9 meters, and then a storm surge on top of that. Could you just spell that out for us, please?
Yeah, essentially we're looking at around that 8 to 10 meters arriving at the coast. Now there is something that the waves create. The waves in themselves create an elevated water level. So we're looking at a contribution of the overall water level of potentially around a meter just from the waves alone. So you have the storm surge, the tide, and the contribution from the waves all kind of acting together. Plus you have that wave action, which will tend to result in issues with the infrastructure.
Next, we'll go to Jean Laroche from CBC. Go ahead, Jean.
Good morning. I have a question directed to Mr. Sidebottom. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the crews you have on standby, where they're on standby, and how many people you have. And I know normally when the power goes out, you can rely on crews coming in from outside the province, but in this COVID situation, how does that change that kind of planning?
So we've been really planning over the summer as to how to respond to a storm using safe COVID protocols. And so with that in hand, we have access and mobilized right now 300 crews right across the province. We have also involved in the restoration efforts a whole range of other support personnel. So right now that includes about 1,000 people ready to respond as the storm approaches. For us, it's the long duration of the storm, the ability to respond safely, ensuring that we are out there as soon as possible and ensuring we're doing it in a safe manner. So we have a good complement of people on the ground. They're well trained in the COVID protocols. And as the crews came in from the Atlantic bubble, each and every one of them went through the training and the safe protocols to respond to the storm.
Go ahead, John, with your follow-up question.
All right, similar question for Mr. Mason. When you do these sorts of things and there's a need to set up comfort stations as we have in the past, how do you do that in the COVID world?
Certainly. What we've done is with our partners at the municipal government who operate the comfort centers, we've shared with them and collaborated with them to ensure that those facilities can be operated in accordance with the public health guidelines. So we've been working with them. So for example, in a situation in Dorian or a similar event, where a community may open one comfort center. Potentially, if the requirement was there in a COVID type scenario, it may be 2 comfort centers, or perhaps a larger facility than would have been operated previously to allow for that physical distancing. And of course, some of the other measures such as hand washing and masks and those types of things.
Next, we'll go to Ian Faircloud from the Chronicle Herald. Go ahead, Ian.
Hi, this question is also for Mark. Just wondering, as the track of the storm's been shifting, are you moving some of those crews that you have staged to other areas of the province, or are you going to wait to see which areas are hardest hit?
So we have a very good coverage across the province right now, and we're watching very closely the track of the storm. We will mobilize crews as we understand where there may be more damage versus others. But we have actually a good spread across the province right now for initial response.
Go ahead, Ian, with your follow-up.
Okay, and with the winds not seeming to be as bad as they were last year, are you hopeful that restoration time, if there are outages, will be sooner because you won't have the higher winds for as long?
Well, first off, I would say we're making sure that we are taking the storm seriously. So we would not be looking at this and saying the winds are lighter. We need to be serious about the response and get that response as quickly as we can. Obviously, we understand that the power outages can be an inconvenience for our customers, and we'll be doing everything possible in our power to ensure that we're getting the power back on as fast as we can, working closely with our partners.
Next, we'll go to Jennifer Henderson with the Halifax Examiner.
Good morning. My question is for Mark Sidebottom, too. I'm curious to know how many of the 300 crews that are mobilized came in from outside Nova Scotia within the bubble.
So approximately about 170 crews came from outside of Nova Scotia, inside the Atlantic bubble. The rest would be crews inside Nova Scotia that would be doing either work for us or our own employees.
Go ahead with your follow-up, Jennifer.
And I guess this one is for Paul with EMO. I'm gonna ask Mark one more question, if I may. Can you tell the public what changes the power company has made since Dorian to make communication more effective with the public if they do experience a power outage?
So we have our outage map, which is a great source of the best information available. Obviously, we're working with our partners in the style we are today. And you can go to the website and actually get quite a detailed and personalized restoration time associated with that. So all of these are very much part of how we communicate with our customers.
Next, we'll go to Geneviève Normand from Radio-Canada. Geneviève, are you there? I'll come back. Next, we'll go to CKBW's Evan Taylor. Go ahead, Evan.
Hi, my question's for Mr. Sidebottom as well. I was wondering if you could touch on where the crews are dispatched, and specifically to my market in this case, which would be the South Shore of Nova Scotia, what the presence of crews are like down here.
The specific number of crews I'll have to get back to you on. We have them fairly evenly dispersed across the province right now, so there'll be a good representation around the province because of the wide swath that we are seeing from the size of the storm.
Go ahead, Evan, with your follow-up.
My follow-up is also for Mark, and I was just wondering if efforts were made in the lead up to the storm to remove tree branches and clear power lines so as to avoid risks, if that was something, a lesson learned from Dorian and something you focused on in anticipation of the storm.
Absolutely. So we've invested over $20 million in the last year in managing vegetation to storm harden the system and remove trees away from the lines so that we can be ready for storms like this.
Next, we'll go to Ed Halverson from QCCR Radio in Liverpool. Ed, are you there? I'll come back to Geneviève Normand from Radio-Canada. Next, we'll go to François Pierre Dufault, Radio-Canada. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I have a question in French for Mr. Bob Robichaud. Monsieur Robichaud, pourriez-vous m'expliquer en français quel va être l'impact de l'onde de tempête que vous attendez avec le passage de Teddy et à quel endroit en particulier sur la côte de la Nouvelle-Écosse et peut-être l'île du Prince-Édouard aussi, est-ce que ce sera plus dangereux potentiellement de voir des inondations ou peut-être même des dangers pour le public?
Du côté des vagues, ça va être pas mal toute la côte atlantique de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Donc, on parle de Yarmouth jusqu'à la côte atlantique du Cap-Breton. Pour ce qui est des périodes qu'on est plus inquiète, ça serait durant la soirée ce soir, surtout à partir d'Halifax en allant vers l'est. Donc, ça va être là qu'on va voir la combinaison d'ondes de tempête et des vagues et des marées, surtout tard en soirée et alentour de minuit. C'est là qui pourraient être les conditions les plus dangereuses avec les ondes de tempête puis les vagues. Là, ça va se poursuivre le long de la côte est de la Nouvelle-Écosse durant la matinée de demain aussi. Ça fait que c'est jusqu'à peu près midi ou tôt en après-midi avant qu'on voit les niveaux d'eau commencer à baisser. Du côté de l'île du Prince-Édouard, on ne prévoit pas qu'il va y avoir trop de problèmes de ce côté-là.
Go ahead, François, with your follow-up question.
Thank you. Toujours en français, M. Robichaud. Si on compare Teddy à Dorian l'année passée, en quoi les deux tempêtes sont semblables et différentes aussi?
Si on parle de grosseur de la tempête, c'est assez comparable. On avait une grosse superficie pour Dorian et on voit ça aussi avec Teddy. Possiblement que Teddy est encore un peu plus gros. Mais on ne voit pas nécessairement les vents autant forts qu'on a vu avec Dorian l'année passée. Et les quantités de pluie ne vont pas être aussi importantes avec Teddy qu'elles étaient avec Dorian.
Thank you. We'll come back to the room to Preston Mulligan.
Thanks. Question again for Mr. Robichaud. Could you tell us, maybe just recap for us, I hear you saying that what you're most concerned about is the storm surge and water levels along the eastern shore during the daylight morning hours of Wednesday. Can you just recap what we should expect in that window when it comes to tide levels along the eastern shore during the area affected, and what you expect wind gusts to be?
Right. Well, if we start from Halifax heading eastward along the eastern shore, we're going to see rising water levels even late this afternoon into the evening hours, despite the tide going out. So we're going to see relatively high water levels and wave action moving in as of this evening, late afternoon to evening. And as we head into the high tide, which is here in Halifax just after midnight, that's when the area along the coastline is going to be most at risk from Halifax, at Halifax. So as we head further up the eastern shore, that's the timing is going to be slightly different. So our high tide there is a little earlier, which may not coincide with the highest waves, which might move in later during the overnight hours, so that by tomorrow morning, as we're heading back towards high tide along the eastern shore, we're going to see the water levels continuing to increase and the wave action continuing to increase as well, so that by high tide, which is around late morning, I believe, tomorrow morning, along that part of the coastline up near Guysborough County, that's when we'll probably see the worst conditions. In terms of wind gusts, we're probably looking at somewhere around 100, maybe a bit less, maybe a little bit more, as the center of the storm is crossing the coastline, which should be midway up the eastern shore during the morning hours of tomorrow. We can't really pinpoint exactly the minute it's going to make landfall, obviously, but it will be during the morning hours tomorrow.
Thank you very much. And that's all the time that we have for questions today. We'll close with Minister if you have any other comments.
Thank you, Tina. I just want to remind people, we've had a good discussion here this morning. Bob Robichaud has talked specifically about the storm surge. It's one of the biggest pieces of this storm coming to us. I know people are attracted to the shoreline. They love to watch the waves. I just want to caution folks, please stay back. Remember, if you get trapped out there, somebody has to come and try to rescue you. So we are putting people in jeopardy unnecessarily by doing such things. So I want to stress that. Again, check on your neighbors, check in with your families, let them know that you're there, you're available, should they need something. And stay safe. And thanks to all of our partners who are at the table with us. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you very much.